We look at the world map and see a jigsaw puzzle of permanent shapes. We are taught that these borders are the bedrock of our identity. But the truth is, the map is a living, breathing thing. It shifts with the stroke of a diplomat's pen, the roar of a revolutionary's cannon, and the slow decay of empires. In the last 100 years, the world has witnessed a mass extinction, not of animals, but of nations. Countries that once printed their own currency, raised their own flags, and sent ambassadors to the United Nations have simply vanished. Some were absorbed into larger neighbors, others were shattered into fragments, and some were wiped away by international law because they were deemed too dangerous to exist. Today on Politics and History, we are opening the vault of the ghost nations. We are traveling from the militarized plains of Central Europe to the spice-scented islands of the Indian Ocean and the forbidden peaks of the Himalayas. If you look at a map of Europe today, you will see Germany. But for centuries, the beating heart of German power was a state called Prussia. Prussia was not just a country, it was a military machine. By the 18th century, under Frederick the Great, Prussia had become a superpower. It was the driving force that defeated Napoleon, and in 1871, it was the architect of the first unified German Empire. For decades, the Prussian capital, Berlin, dictated the fate of Europe. But then came the World Wars. The Allied powers, the US, Britain, and the Soviet Union, came to believe that the Prussian spirit of rigid militarism and expansionism was the root cause of both global conflicts. They didn't just want to defeat Germany, they wanted to destroy the Prussian identity. In 1947, something unprecedented happened. The Allied Control Council issued Law No. 46. It didn't just change a border, it officially abolished the state of Prussia, declaring it a bearer of militarism and reaction. With one document, a nation that had existed for centuries was legally deleted. Today, its lands are split between Germany, Poland, and Russia. Prussia is gone, but its shadow still lingers in every political tension within modern Europe. High above the clouds, sheltered by the most formidable mountains on Earth, sat Tibet. For over 1,000 years, it existed as a unique theocracy, a nation where the church and the state were one, led by the Dalai Lama. While the rest of the world was industrializing and fighting over colonies, Tibet remained a forbidden kingdom, largely isolated from modern politics. But geography couldn't protect it forever. In 1950, the newly established People's Republic of China made a move that would change the Himalayas forever. They asserted that Tibet had always been a part of the Chinese motherland. The Tibetan army, small and ill-equipped, was no match for the People's Liberation Army. The politics of this disappearance were complex. Tibet appealed to the United Nations, but in the heat of the Cold War, no major power was willing to risk a war with China over a remote mountain plateau. In 1959, after a failed uprising, the Dalai Lama fled to India in disguise. Tibet was officially absorbed as an autonomous region. To the Chinese government, it was a peaceful liberation. To millions of Tibetans, it was the end of a sovereign history. The nation vanished from the map, but the Free Tibet movement remains one of the most enduring political ghosts in history. Now let's move to the Indian Ocean, to an island where the air smells of cloves and ginger. Zanzibar. For centuries, Zanzibar was a wealthy Omani sultanate, a hub for the spice trade and, tragically, the slave trade. In the late 19th century, it became a British protectorate. But as the winds of decolonization blew across Africa in the 1960s, Zanzibar saw its chance. In December 1963, the British flag was lowered, and Zanzibar became a fully independent constitutional monarchy under the Sultan. Its life as a sovereign nation was incredibly short. Just 1 month later, in January 1964, a violent revolution erupted. African revolutionaries overthrew the Arab Sultanate in a matter of days. In the chaotic aftermath, the Cold War moved in. Fearing that Zanzibar would become an African Cuba, a communist base off the coast, the leaders of Zanzibar and the neighboring mainland country of Tanganyika made a swift political move. On April 26, 1964, they signed the Articles of Union. Two nations merged to form one, Tanzania. Zanzibar gave up its seat at the UN, its own foreign policy, and its status as a country. It remains an autonomous part of Tanzania today, but its 33 days of true independence are a fascinating footnote in the history of lost states. For 41 years. There wasn't just one Germany, there were two. Born out of the ashes of World War II, the German Democratic Republic, or East Germany, was the ultimate experiment in Soviet-style socialism on German soil. It was the front line of the Cold War, the literal Iron Curtain. The politics of East Germany were defined by the Stasi, one of the most pervasive secret police forces in history, and the Berlin Wall. For millions, the GDR was a land of surveillance and limited freedom. For others, it was a state that provided guaranteed work, housing, and a sense of collective identity. But by the late 1980s, the socialist dream was bankrupt. When the Soviet Union, under Mikhail Gorbachev, signaled that it would no longer use its tanks to prop up communist regimes, the GDR began to crumble. November 1989, the wall fell, but the disappearance of the nation took one more year. On October 3, 1990, East Germany didn't just merge with West Germany, it was legally absorbed. The GDR ceased to exist. Its Olympic teams, its currency, and its government vanished overnight. Today, the nostalgia for the East is a powerful psychological force in German politics, proving that a country can vanish from the map but remain in the hearts of its people. This is perhaps the most significant political disappearance in human history, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. At its height, the USSR was a titan. It covered 15% of the Earth's land surface. It put the first man in space, possessed the world's largest nuclear arsenal, and led a global ideological movement. The Soviet Union was a superstate, a federation of 15 republics from Estonia on the Baltic to Kyrgyzstan in Central Asia. It seemed indestructible. But the cracks were deep. Economic stagnation, a disastrous war in Afghanistan, and the Chernobyl disaster exposed a system that could no longer provide for its people. When Gorbachev introduced glasnost, openness, and perestroika restructuring, he hoped to save the Union. Instead, he unleashed the one force the Kremlin couldn't control: nationalism. One by one, the republics, starting with the Baltics, declared their independence. On December 25, 1991, the red flag with the hammer and sickle was lowered from the Kremlin for the last time. 15 new countries appeared on the map, and the Soviet Union, a superpower that had defined the 20th century, vanished into history. The political fallout of this disappearance is still being felt today, most notably in the tragic conflicts we see in Ukraine and the Caucasus. The ghost of the Soviet Union is still haunting the world's borders. Our final stop takes us back to the Himalayas, to the small, misty kingdom of Sikkim. Sandwiched between India, China, Nepal, and Bhutan, Sikkim was a protectorate of India but maintained its own king known as the Chaji. For years, the politics of Sikkim were a delicate balance. The king wanted more independence, while many of his subjects, particularly the ethnic Nepali majority, wanted more democracy and closer ties with India. In 1973, anti-monarchy riots paralyzed the capital, Gangtok. The Indian army moved in to restore order. Under pressure, the Chajil agreed to a more democratic system, but the tensions remained. In 1975, a referendum was held. The question was simple: should the monarchy be abolished and Sikkim join India as its 22nd state? The result was an overwhelming yes. On May 16, 1975, the Kingdom of Sikkim vanished. It became a state within the Republic of India. While India views this as a democratic merger, some historians and the late Chajil's family have called it a clever political annexation. Regardless of the interpretation, a 300-year-old kingdom was erased from the map in a single afternoon. 6 nations, 6 stories of disappearance. Prussia was deleted by law, Tibet was absorbed by force, Zanzibar merged for security, East Germany collapsed under the weight of freedom, the Soviet Union shattered from internal pressure, and Sikkim voted itself out of existence. What does this tell us? It tells us that history is never static. The maps we see in our classrooms today are just a snapshot of a moment in time. As politics evolve and the balance of power shifts, more nations will likely rise and some will inevitably vanish. The ghost nations remind us that sovereignty is fragile and history is written by those who remain. Which of these vanished countries do you think had the biggest impact on our world? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into politics and history, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Help us keep the stories of the past alive. I'm your narrator, and this was Politics and History. See you in the next chapter.